So we have discussed we have discussed so many different examples, right? But as I am telling you that trigger is the only question that they will ask you in interview to write the code. Is it fine now? Audio? Is the audio fine now? Still you are getting echo? Huh? So we already discussed so many examples. But still, as this is a really crucial concept, I will give you a website 36 triggers in Salesforce. Okay. So go to this. Okay. If you complete these 36 triggers, he will give answer also he will give explanation also he will give. Okay. If you complete this, then 100% guarantee that any scenario that you get in your interview, you will be able to in any company. Okay, only 36. Okay, I'm putting the link also in the chat window. Okay, people who came for offline. Okay, people who are joining online, just copy that link and put it in WhatsApp so that others also will get benefit out of it. Okay, so if you cover all these trigger scenarios, okay, then it is more than enough. You will be able to do any situation, any requirement in the entire Salesforce. Okay, but if you do this with understanding, if you blindly copy and remember those 36 triggers, it is of no use. If you understand each and everything, then it will be of use. Okay. Okay. Fine. So, as I said in the previous class, today we are going to discuss about asynchronous effects. Okay, asynchronous effects. So, what is the purpose of asynchronous effects? Why we need to go for asynchronous effects? Okay, so so what write using effects, basically some code using effects, right? You'll write some code, okay? And this code, either it will be an effects class or effects trigger. We have written only these two things till now, yes or no? Either you will write an effects class or effects trigger. Trigger means it will execute on its own whenever you perform a DML operation. Effects class means it cannot execute on its own. You have to call it either by creating an object for the class or from a visual force page where you will click a button and that will call this effects class, or through lightning component or through LWC or through flow or through process builder, you will call the effects class. Okay, if this is a effects class, okay, or trigger in anything, how system will execute line by line what is the code that it will execute line by line. Okay, so in this fashion, if it is executing, this is known as synchronous. Sync, you know this, right? The word sync. See, if you are syncing your contacts from Gmail, then same thing is coming here, right? Synchronous means in order. Asynchronous means not in order. The meaning of synchronous means in order. Okay, if you put something in order, it is synchronous. Okay, if you don't follow the order, it is asynchronous. Okay, so by default, if you don't mention synchronous or asynchronous, we will consider it as synchronous because by default it will go in order. If you don't want to go in order, then especially we need to specify that we want to do it asynchronously. Okay, if you don't specify anything, it means it is synchronous only. Okay, fine. So if you imagine that this is an effects class, okay, and see how you will execute, you will, okay, so let's consider that this is one. Whenever you are calling obj dot m1, okay, obj dot m2, always which order it will follow, this order it will follow, not this order. That is clear for you, right? Okay. For example, here if I write M2 first and M1 next, then first M2 will execute, yes or no? So this order, whatever it is there, this order it will follow, yes or no? Is this clear? Like this, if I have, imagine there are five different methods, and I have written like what happens. system will execute like this. First it will complete the method one, then it will go to method. Let's imagine that this M1 method, okay, the entire method to execute, it is taking some time, okay. Let's imagine it is taking 1 second to complete this. This is taking 2 seconds to complete this. Okay, this is taking 5 seconds to complete. Okay, and again this is taking 1 second, 8 seconds, and this is taking 1 second. Okay, so now if if I am dependent on the previous values, okay. If I want to execute M5, okay, and to execute a value, and that value is coming from M4, for example, method 4. In that case, I have any option? No, I don't have any option. It has to go in order only. But imagine that my M5 is a method which does not depend on any of the information in this method. And if this is not dependent on this one and this one, can I execute parallelly? Yes or no? If this M5 is dependent on the values of M1 to M4, then only after completing M4 you need to do the M5. But if it is not dependent, then can I execute both of them parallelly? Yes or no? So if I execute parallelly, then I no need to wait all this time. See, 1 plus 2, 3 plus 5, 8, 8 plus 8, 16. Actually, to execute M5, actual process will take only 1 second to execute it. But I need to wait 16 seconds, then this M5 is getting executed. If I go in order, and I know that M5 is not dependent on the above ones. So in such scenarios, we will go for asynchronous attacks. Asynchronous attacks. Why we will go for asynchronous attacks? Whenever you want to perform a job or activity which, which is not dependent on the previous steps, so you want to perform it parallelly. Okay, so that is what asynchronous. So here, if I execute this one and this one parallelly, then what happens? This no need to wait for all these things. No? So it will execute quickly and it will give its result. It will execute separately, it will give its result. Okay. Here I am doing only 2 steps parallelly. If I want to do 3 steps parallelly, yes, I can do. So if I want to execute this second one separately, separate track, yes, you can execute. Like that, in any number of separate tracks you want, you can execute. But to execute in these separate tracks, okay, we call it as a thread. One execution, we call it as a thread. Okay, or thread means in Java you call it as a thread. Here we call it as a transaction. In general, what happens whenever you start till end, it will execute as a single transaction. Okay, every time, generally, whatever you start till end, it will execute as a single transaction. But if you want to execute separately like this, it means you are performing in different transactions. Okay. For a single transaction, we have some governor limits. For every single transaction, we have some governor limits. Like maximum in a single transaction, you can write only 100 SOQL queries, maximum 150 DML operations. So There is a limit on every activity that you do within a single transaction. But here in asynchronous effects, what happens? You are making it as a separate transaction. As you are executing it in a separate transaction, our limits also will increase. Generally, if you execute this in a single transaction, I am saying that maximum 100 SOQL queries you can execute, maximum 150 DML operations you can perform. But if I execute in two different transactions, each transaction will have its own limit. So indirectly, I am increasing the limits, yes or no? So as I am executing in a different transactions, what are the advantages I am getting? First advantage, I no need to wait. Second advantage, the limits are getting increased. Okay. And see, what advantage is there? Here, if it is going in this order, first step, second step, third step, fourth step, fifth step, like that, if the fourth step fails, system will stop there and fifth step will not execute. Yes or no? But if I am executing in a parallelly different threads or different transactions, system file will execute separately. M1, M2, M3, M4, all four will execute in a single transaction. M5 executes in a separate transaction. So, if something happens with M2 or M3, it will not impact M5. M5 will execute. So, what happens some operations, okay, and there is one action that you want to perform, like you want to update a problem with that
Recording in
system, you
progress.
are not able to do that update. Okay, so if you perform this in a separate transaction, then what happens? That will not affect your regular process. In your system, for example, normally M5 you are doing it separately. If it fails, it will not impact the other process. So what happens by executing the code in asynchronous mode? The advantage is first thing, this execution efficiency we can increase. Okay. So M4 and 5, if I execute in that order, M5 need to wait for 16 seconds, even though it needs only 1 second for execution. 16 seconds only, that time is saved. So efficiency of execution will increase. That's one advantage. Second advantage, the limits. As I'm executing in different, that's why limits also will increase for me. Okay. Third advantage, last point, I told third advantage. What is that? If one transaction fails, that will not have any impact on the other transactions because both are two individual transactions, right? So separate transactions, so they can execute it. These are advantages, right? We need to know the disadvantages also. The disadvantage is when you are performing in asynchronous mode, okay, you cannot guarantee. See, now M1, M2, M3, M4, okay, M5, five methods are there. What I have done, I have done that M2 separately I want to execute, M5 separately I want to execute, all the remaining M1, M3, M4 I want to execute. So these three are three different transactions, right? Among these three transactions, which will execute first, which will execute next? You cannot guarantee. We cannot say based on the system resource availability, it will execute, it will make the decision. System will make the decision, and you have no control of that decision. Okay. So in asynchronous mode, you can divide a single transaction to multiple transactions. Overall performance will increase, but you cannot guarantee which transaction will execute first, which transaction will execute next. So that is the drawback. and we have a solution for overcoming the drawback. Also, we have a solution. Okay. So basically, first you understand why we are going for asynchronous effects. Already we have effects, right? Why we are going for asynchronous effects? Because of these three reasons. It's a we are going for asynchronous effects. Now, to achieve asynchronous effects, Salesforce is giving us some concepts. Okay, future method. This is one concept using which you can achieve the asynchronous effects. Global effects, schedulable effects. See, in interview, whenever the interviewer asks you a question, have you worked on asynchronous effects? See the question, listen the question carefully. He is not pinpointedly asking you, tell me about asynchronous effects or tell me about future method. He is not asking that. Casually he will ask, have you worked on asynchronous effects? If you give an answer, yes, I worked on asynchronous. That's it. That's the answer, right? Generally. But for my students, what I will say is, you will say that yes, I worked on asynchronous. Then you have to continue your answer saying that Salesforce is providing us multiple features to achieve the asynchronous effects like future method, curable effects, variable effects, and batch effects. And each one we will discuss in detail. Okay, that explanation also you tell. If you give this complete explanation, then he will be asynchronous effects and he will not ask you to write any code. If you give one word answers, then there will be a complex question in his mind that he will ask. Okay, this is a tip. So, as you can to tell the truth, whether you are a fresher or experienced, I mean, whether you are trying for a job as a fresher or experienced, the truth is you learned through the training. You can answer only basic level questions. You cannot answer the real time scenarios or more complex situations that a person who is already really working from the past 3 years or 5 years, you will never you compete with that person, yes or no? Fact. This is the fact. So you should have some extra advantage. You should have some extra edge when compared to that person. Okay, when you are going for an interview, who is your competitor? A person who really worked for 3 years. You kept 3 years wait. Okay. So you are fighting, you are competing with a person who really worked. So you should have some techniques that he don't know. What are those techniques that the real person won't know? If you use such techniques, then it will be easy for you to crack the job. Okay. So what are those techniques are? The standard interview questions I already gave you that some more I will give in future. Okay. So these are standard questions. Everyone will ask these standard questions only. Okay. So if you can answer these standard questions in a better way when compared to that guy, for that guy, the drawbacks, if there is a person with the name X, okay, and that person is having real time experience, that guy worked on all the apex triggers, classes, admin, he worked on all those things. So he will go to the interview thinking that I know everything. With that in mind, he will go for the interview. Then in the interview answer. But at that time, he will think and and try to put his answer in his own words. Okay. If you compare that, the person and has a clear cut answer. He is having an added advantage, yes or no? So you already the same question. The interviewer is asking the same question for that real time guy also, for you also. For that person, he will think and he will answer it in his own words. There will be some lag, yes or no? But if you know, because you know that question, you prepared already that question. So you will be in a better format, yes or no? So that is one advantage and compared to that person. Next point is some real-time people, they will give one word answer. Okay. What is the lookup relationship? Tell me about lookup relationship. I have given you so many points, yes or no? That they will give one or two points. It does not mean that he don't know. He knows that. He knows that when situation comes, he can do that. But preparation wise, he did not prepare. That's why he can give one or two points. As you have question paper with you have the question paper, you know all the questions. Then how your answer should be? You should give all the 5 or 6 points. Then this is the added advantage compared to that person. Okay? So these are the added advantages that you have. Okay? So you know the question, you know the answer. Then how should you perform? You should perform 100%. Not even a single mistake you should do. Because see, in an interview, first they will start with basic level questions. Nobody will ask you a very complex question as the first question. Basic level questions, step by step, they will increase the complexity. Basic level questions, if you answer very well with clear explanation, all the points, if you give perfect answers, then what happens time to answer these basic questions. So if you give one word answers, then he will ask all the 10 questions. But if you are giving a detailed explanation, then within that time he can ask only 6 questions. Yes or no? First six obviously will be easy, yes or no? When compared to 7, 8, 9, 10 questions. So two ways you will get advantage. One way, you are answering easy question and you are answering it in a better way. Second way, before we come to the complex question only, entry will be over. So one question that person will have, okay, this guy is giving correct answers and he answered all my questions. You will get silent. So you need to follow such kind of tips. Of course, I will give not only today, I mean in coming classes also I will give this kind of tips. So if you follow these kind of things, it will be easy for you. Okay? Fine. Similarly, asynchronous effects. If he uses the word asynchronous effects, tell him everything that you know about asynchronous. Tell him everything that you know about asynchronous. Because if he pinpointedly goes and gives a specific scenario, it will be really difficult to answer. That is why I am asking you to make a notes of this one, prepare this, and give a complete answer. So if he uses the word asynchronous, then start. That's it. Give 2 pages answer. Then he will not ask anything more about it. Of course, we will do practicals, everything we will do. But if he asks a tough situation or tough scenario that he is facing in his project, it will be difficult for anyone. So the generic one, you need to give a detailed explanation. Okay. Is it clear now? So now you put the asynchronous effects heading in your notes and write down these 4 points. These are the 4 asynchronous effects features provided by Salesforce. Now, one by one, we will discuss. Okay. Once this is done, in future method, what are the in future method we have 3 points. I will give you in shortcut. Okay, remember these points. Remember these points so that in interview it will help you a lot. See, interview preparation is different. Okay, learning the concept and really doing the work is different. Here, the person with real time experience, they know how to do, but they cannot express themselves in a better way. Of course, some people will do, some people will not do. They will not focus on this area. So, if you cannot compete with him in that area, you compete with him in another area in which he is weak. So, you have to be very good in your expression. How you can get that good expression when you practice? Okay, if you know a question and answer, repeat that question and answer 10 times. And when you are preparing, always read it loudly outside. Don't do mind reading. Don't do that. If you do mind reading, what happens? You know the answer, remember the answer, but when you are telling, you may tell it in a wrong. So read it loudly. All our questions and answers, read it loudly. Don't think about anybody else. Don't think that okay, I am not a small kid. I am 21 years old. Now, if I read loudly, it will look good. Don't think in all those angles. We are not going to do this. Only one time activity. Each question tells on the fear of speaking out. Because unconsciously when you
Recording in progress.
okay now. So what you need to do, all our standard questions and answers, read it loudly 10 times. Okay? And you will be able to crack any. Okay? See the questions for a
Recording in
more time to
progress.
execute. So whenever there is a complex business logic, okay, complex business logic, then we will use future method so that that specific job we will execute in a separate transaction, so that it will not waste the time of the entire process. So that is one scenario. Another scenario is mixed DML, mixed DML. What is this mixed DML? See, for example, if I ask you to perform a operation, create a new account or create a new position record. Create a new position record, that is a DML operation, yes or no? Create a new user or change the profile settings. Change the profile settings. Existing already profile is there. Okay. Imagine there are two profiles. One is a standard user profile, another one is a system admin profile. So many profiles are there. Let's imagine these two profiles. For standard user profile, for standard user profile, we don't have access to positions object. Imagine that. Okay. Imagine that there is, okay. So here I am telling about two things. One thing is standard user profile. Okay. This is one profile. Okay. This is one profile and another profile. Okay. These are two different profiles. Okay. And I have for standard user profile positions I have not given access. For position object I have not given access. Okay. For system admin position access is there. Okay. Clear? Okay. Now, if I am performing a DML operation on the position object, okay, it means I want to modify a position. Already existing position is there. I just want to make some value change on that position record. Okay. Imagine that if I am doing that through code. Yes or no? We have done this in a single transaction. In a single transaction, if I am trying to modify the position also, and if I am trying to modify the standard user profile also. See, this person is not having access to position object. I want to give him access to position object also, and I want to make the update on the position also. Both the things I want to achieve in a single transaction. Then you will get a error called mixed DML exception. Mixed DML exception, that is the name of the error, and you will get that kind of error. Why we are getting that kind of error? Because you are trying to perform a DML operation on two different types of objects. One object is a setup object, another object is non-setup object. So which objects on which if you make any change that will impact the org. Like if you are creating a new user or if you are deleting or deactivating a user or if you are changing the profile level access or permission sets, these will make, so if you are creating a new user, what you are doing? You are creating a record of the user object. Yes or no? If you are changing the profile access, it means what? Already profile object is there. In that, this is one of the record. In that record, you are making a DML operation. Modification you are doing. Yes or no? But if you make this type of change, it will impact the overall settings of your Salesforce, yes or no? But if you make change on a field of the position record, will it impact the settings of the Salesforce? No, it will not impact. If you change account on account record, one of the record annual revenue is 5,000, for example. You want to change the value from 5,000 to 4,500. You changed it. Will it have any impact on the Salesforce overall settings? No. There is a profile, standard user profile, for whom the position access is not given. And now if I give the position access, this is also a change DML operation modification. But this will have an impact on the overall Salesforce org settings, yes or no? So the objects on which if you make any DML operation, if that has an impact on overall Salesforce org, so that kind of object change is known as that kind of objects are known as setup objects. All the other objects are known as non-setup objects. Okay? Just so till now, what we know that objects can be categorized into two types: standard objects, custom objects. Okay. So now this is a new point that you are learning, that we can categorize objects into setup objects, non-setup objects. Okay. Even though account is a standard object, opportunity is a standard object, but they come under setup or non-setup, you tell me? Non-setup. Because whenever you create an account, it will not impact on the org settings. So what examples of setup objects, what are the examples of setup objects? User, profile, permission set. Okay. These are examples of what setup objects. Okay. Now you understood the difference between setup object and non-setup object. Okay. Okay. So if you try to perform a DML operation on setup object also, non-setup object also in a single transaction. Then you will get a mixed DML exception. Then using future method, we will execute these two in two different transactions. Then you will not face this problem. Okay? Getting my point? So if you include within a single transaction multiple DML operations, but all are on setup objects, all are on non-setup objects, then no problem. If you are performing two DML operations, one is performing on setup object, another one is performing a non-setup object, then it will create a error, and that error is known as a mixed DML exception. Okay. So to resolve this mixed DML exception, we will use future method. Okay. So now what we understood, so future method is used one thing to perform whenever there is a complex business logic, then you will go for a future method. Okay. Whenever there is a mixed DML exception, to resolve this also we will use what? To resolve this also we will use future method. And next one, callouts. Externals. To perform. Callout. See, since Salesforce will not allow you to write callout code in normal synchronous effects. Why? Because imagine these are M1, M2, M3, M4, M5 like this. The 4, 5 methods are there. For example, M1 you is all the required inputs you are giving in Salesforce and you answer also you are getting in Salesforce. But in M2, you are trying to contact an external system and from external system you are getting the answer, for example. Then if M3 is waiting for M2, we cannot guarantee it will work every time because we don't have know that external system will work or not. Yes or no? There can be network issue, there can be server issue, there can be any issue. Yes or no? So that is why what we will do it in a separate transaction. Then what happens here in M3, before starting that only we will verify this condition. If the response is coming correctly, then only perform this. Otherwise, do another activity, show the error or so on and so on. Okay. So using future method, what you can achieve. These are the three scenarios you can achieve. These are the three scenarios you can achieve using future method. Okay, clear? Next, after future method, I will give you notes, don't worry. Okay, we have queuable limits. So in future method, there are some drawbacks in future method. What is that drawback? So future method, I am saying future method, it is nothing but a method. Normal method, in front of normal method, if you write the word at the rate future, then it will become future method. For normal method, in front of the method, if you write at the rate future, that's it will become future method. Then it will execute in a separate transaction. That's it. We will of course do practically all those things. I want you to be clear with the theory part. That's why today theory we will cover, tomorrow practicals we will do. Okay. Fine. So future method is nothing but it is also a method. Generally, for a method, you can give parameters as input, yes or no. You can pass the parameters to a method, yes or no. If you pass parameters, it is known as a parameterized method. If you don't pass parameters, it is known as a non-parameterized method. This we discussed in the beginning, yes or no. So, for future method also you can pass parameters. But the condition here is, I mean, system what it can do, what it cannot do. I will tell. Future method, for future method, you can pass only primitive data types as parameters. If you try to pass S object as a parameter to future method, it will not work. So future method says that I can accept only primitive data types, I cannot accept S object. Majority of the times we work with S objects only. Majority of the times we work with a subject only, and future method says that a subject I cannot take, I give you only primitive data types. Like integer, string, ID, boolean, these things I will take, but a subject I cannot take. That is the limitation of future method. Okay. How to overcome this limitation? I will tell you that. Okay. First we will see the limitations. This is one limitation. Okay. First we have seen three advantages, three good things about future method. Two disadvantages are there. One thing, disadvantage or drawbacks we can say. First drawback is this one. Future method can take only primitive data types as parameters. It cannot take a subject as parameter. That is first drawback. Okay, fine. Second drawback, if you have multiple future methods. See, for I want to execute this M2 separately, M5 separately. So for M2 also I have written future method, M5 also I have written future method. Okay. Then normal thing is also executing. Okay. In normal thing, what will be there? M1, M3, M4 executing in normal. M2 separate, M5 separate, and executing them separately. So total three transactions, right? So here I have normal apex. I mean normal standard one is there. Two future methods are there. Among these three, which one will execute first, which one will execute next? Only God knows. Nobody can tell. So if you have two future methods or multiple future methods, among them, if you want to decide the order, first I want M2 to execute. Only if M2 is successful, then only I want to execute M5. Otherwise, I don't want to execute. I know that M5 will take long time. See, normally one point you need to understand. Synchronous means you will give the input, it will execute and it will give the output. You know when it will start and when it will end. Asynchronous means you cannot guarantee when it will complete. Okay, then you will go for asynchronous. Either it can be because of the complexity of the logic, or if you are calling an external system and that is giving the reply, you don't know when it will give, whether it will give or not. So all these things where there is uncertainty, where you cannot guarantee, then you will put them in asynchronous. But if there are multiple asynchronous, there is first asynchronous M2, second asynchronous M5. But you want this M5 should execute only after M2. You don't know when M2 will complete and how much time it will take because it is asynchronous. As I said, in asynchronous, we can only start. When it will execute, it depends on the system availability. We cannot have any control. So this is a drawback, yes or no? If I want M5 to execute only after M2, I cannot achieve that. So this is the second drawback of future method. So future method advantages, these three we discussed. These two are the drawbacks of the future method, right? So using queuable effects, you can overcome those two drawbacks of future method. So for queuable effects, directly you can pass S object as parameter. First answer, that problem is resolved here. Second thing, you can perform chaining of jobs. Chaining of job means first this job, next this job, like that. I can give the order in which I want to execute. So first job, when it will execute, I don't know. How much time it will take, I don't know. But only first job when completes, then only I want to execute the second job. Second job also when it will execute, how much time it will take. So multiple asynchronous jobs I can put in a queue. Okay, multiple asynchronous jobs I can put it in a queue, and at any point of time I can query and see the status. How many, for example, in a queue there are four. For example, how many are completed? Third job, what is the status? Fifth job, what is the status? Whether it is started, in progress, completed. Everything I can see. So these are the advantages of queuable effects. Okay. So now queuable effects, we can pass S object as parameter. Second advantage, chaining of jobs. You understood, right? The word chaining of jobs means multiple asynchronous jobs we can link and we can ask only when it is completed, next next do this, like that. Okay. Now, is this clear? Is this clear? It is different from normal execution. M1, M2, M3, M4. If you execute normally, then after M1 only M2 is working, after M2 only M3 is working. But they are executing in the synchronous. Within a single transaction, they are executing. But here, what I am doing, M1, M2, M3, M4, in separate transactions, I am executing. But I want to execute them in an order. Okay, asynchronous jobs, if you want to put in a queue, then you will go for queuable. Is this clear till this point? Everyone clear? Okay. Now, Google effectively future ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో అడ్వాంటేజెస్ అవన్నీ ఉంటాయా? No, ఓన్లీ ఆ పర్టికులర్ ఆర్డర్ యూస్ చేసుకోవడానికి మాత్రమే ఫ్యూయల్ చేస్తారు. So that's why I'm telling you, if you have only, see, M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. Out of these, only M4 is complex. Remaining all are 2, 3 seconds, 5 seconds. That's it, right? So only M4 you want to execute separately. Then you will use future method. If you want to do call out, then you will use future method. If you want to resolve the mixed DML exception, then you will use future method only. But when you have multiple jobs and you want to execute those jobs in a specific order, if Q is only the important thing, then go for queuable. So every time, based on the situation, you need to make this decision. Which asynchronous feature I need to use? Whether I should use the future method or queuable. At that scenario, you need to decide. If there are multiple asynchronous jobs that you want to execute, then you will go for queuable. If only one or two, then you will go for future method. Clear? So third point is schedule. This is very simple. You want to perform a piece of code, you want to execute that at a specific date and time. You will give the date and time, like December 21st, 2023. On that date, I want to execute this. Okay, you will write your entire code, give that date and time. At that time only it will execute. Before also, after also, it will not execute. Okay, like that. In some cases, what happens? See, like weekly attendance, for example. Weekly, whether this person is attending classes or not, for weekly attendance, I want to run a job. So every week on Friday, it will execute. If I give every week, repeatedly also I can execute. One time also I can give schedule, repeatedly I can also schedule. Recurring salary. Every month first you will get the salary, right? So if you want to perform such kind of thing, you can give the every month, date first, morning 9 o'clock, execute this job. Like that. Date and time you will give. For that, for executing schedulable effects, we need to give the date and time. How can you give the date and time? Using cron trigger. Cron trigger is nothing but providing date and time. That is known as cron trigger. Using that, we will execute the schedulable effects. Next point is Now, last one, batch effects. In general, within a single transaction, you can perform how many records, operational how many records, 50,000 records in a single transaction. For example, already in your system, there are 2 lakh accounts. Already in your system, 2 lakh accounts are already there. In front of every account, you want to put Mr. For example, I'm telling you. Okay. Then what you need to do? You need to query. First of all, you need to query all the records and then you need to put Mr. MR in front of every record. So here batch effects executes in such a way that you no need to perform a DML operation. Trigger, we need to perform a DML operation to invoke. For batch effects, it's not like that. If you click on execute batch, that's it. It will only query all the records and then it can perform on up to 5 million records. So normally what happens, our governor limits will stop us to execute beyond 50,000 records. Okay. But in batch effects, we can execute up to 5 million records. It means what? If you want to perform any business logic or functionality on huge number of records, then you will use batch effects. See, if I want to perform a complex business logic on few records, then I will use future method. If I want to perform a simple logic but on huge number of records, then I will use batch effects. If I want to perform some business logic which has multiple asynchronous jobs, then I will go for queuable effects. If I want to perform a business logic at a specified date and time, then I will choose the schedulable effects. So four different things are for four different purposes. Is it clear? Now you note down this one. Just note down this one. Tomorrow I will give you the complete notes about each and everything. And then practicals also we will do. Okay. Here, this one also attachment. Okay. Yes, I can put attachment. Your voice is not coming down. Okay. I have given this in the chart window also. Okay. Chart window also I have given this. Okay. You can take from there also. Okay. You don't need to write it now. You can take it from there. Okay. Chart window I kept it. Okay. Someone who joined online, copy that and put it in the WhatsApp also. Okay. So that everyone will have the information. So today's class, what we have done, what is the purpose of asynchronous effects? What are the different features available and what when to use which feature that we have discussed today. Tomorrow, practically, we will work on each one of the things. So in future method, we have to work on three different examples, three different things. Queuable effects, two different examples we need to do. Schedulable effects, one example we will do. Batch effects, one example we will do. Then our asynchronous effects will be completed. Clear? Clear is following? Okay. Shall I conclude the session for today? Okay. Thank you. Tomorrow I should see more number of guys. Attendance should increase. Okay. Fine. Thank you.